Well, first of all, welcome. Thank you very, very much for being here today, and thanks to PSP for hosting us. My name's Michael Buss. I'm with IBM, specifically in our MobileFirst division, and I'm just thrilled that you guys are having a day dedicated to mobile. It is such an exciting topic, and just so much happening in the space. And I mean, think about it. Mobile devices. Anybody have an old sort of non-smartphone device? So everybody in this room got smartphones. Got phones like this, right? Anybody got wearables like this yet? Coming soon. Tablets, right? Tablets. Think about the different screen sizes just here in my hand. Serious challenges. Things to think about as we talk mobile, but I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I do want to kind of give you guys some food for thought about mobile, some of the challenges, some of the things we're working on with lots of clients around the world. I also want to talk a little bit about the recent announcement about the Apple and IBM partnership, because that's very interesting what we're doing, the work we're doing with them there. So, a lot to cover. I should mention we do have a booth right outside the store and to the right. My colleague Cliff is a technical whiz and can answer the deepest of deep questions. So if you've got any technical ones, really save them for him. He loves a good challenge. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Mobile, smarter government, improving citizen services as well as your own employee services through mobility. Should add that to the title. I want to take a little trip down memory lane to really think about how mobile and mobile interactions have changed our lives. The weather. Something as simple as the weather. And I'm dating myself, got a little bit of gray hair, I admit. Do you remember back in the day, if we wanted to find out what the weather was going to be tomorrow or the 5-day forecast, you checked the newspaper in the morning, or you waited until 6 p.m. for the news. And as I recall, at about 6:03, you got a little teaser as to what was coming in the weather, and then at 6:18 p.m., you actually got the weather and the 5-day forecast, right? Think about how mobile's changed that. Anytime, anywhere, I can get the weather. I actually checked this morning, found out what the weather was back home, because I'm not from this area, just to see what was happening for my family. Just a quick swipe, pulls it right up. Here's another one. Maps. Does anybody remember real paper maps? Anybody ever a AAA member and got triptychs? Yeah, love those, right? You go from Sacramento down to LA and they send it to you and it folds out and it's highlighted. It's all, you know, the interstate the whole way there. So here's some gas stations and places of interest, right? Mobile has changed that anytime, anywhere. Back when I was a college student, I went to Venice, was backpacking around Europe. And I pride myself on my sense of direction, and I got completely lost in Venice, in Italy, because there aren't really roads, there's canals everywhere, and it's just everything's turning and twisting. I went back with my wife this summer and couldn't get lost because the map told us where we were at every single point at any time, to the point where she made me actually switch the phone off. It was no fun, because you couldn't get lost in Venice. Here's one, not internet radio. This is an app that didn't even exist before mobile. Can anybody guess what it is? You're listening to music. Love that song. What's that song? Anybody take a guess? I think I heard it. Shazam, right? This is an app that was born on mobile. Wonder what that song is? Just hold your phone up to it. It could be in your car or at a friend's. It tells you what the song is. Again, mobile, changing just simple ways, but lots of really amazing ways that we didn't think about a few years ago. Everybody's going to get this one. What's this? What mobile app do we now use? Uber. Totally changed this industry, right? Again, just a simple mobile app. Anybody guess how many times a day the average mobile phone user looks at their phone? 100? 125? 150? Average is 150. Here on the top left. I think I'm on the road a lot, so it's definitely a lot more than that for me. Did you also know that 2 out of every 3 people always have their mobile phone within arm's reach 24 hours a day? I mean, it's my alarm clock. I wake up, check the weather, check my emails, then I'm on the road, you know, it's always within reach. And yet, look at this statistic. The mobile experience is not meeting expectations. 80% of apps are used once and then deleted because they're not great. In fact, sometimes they can be terrible. Some other things. Look at the kind of transactions and data that's being created by mobile devices. I'll give you a really quick and easy example. I've got to fly tomorrow to my next trip. I want to get upgraded. You know, like my first class upgrade. I now have a cool app from the airlines that allows me to see where I am on the waiting list for the upgrade. And guess what? As we get to the airport time, you know, they start processing the upgrades, and I keep checking, keep pressing the button, going to the back end servers, keep hitting the servers, just checking to see about my upgrade. It's workload created by mobile that didn't really exist, right? I like this one too down the bottom. By 2015, 2/3 of the workforce will own a smartphone, and 40% of the workforce will be mobile. How do you take advantage of these statistics in mobile? How do you leverage those, whether it's for your own employees or for your citizens, partners, stakeholders? Let's just step back a sec and talk again about these different devices that I've got here. Let's just look at smartphones, for example. Millions and millions of devices are being sold every year. This is a huge challenge for folks that are thinking about mobile, right? They have different screen sizes, different capabilities. How do you plan for that when you're thinking about mobile apps? These are all things you need to think about. Let's focus on an operating system, Android in this case. So forget about the actual physical phone. Let's think about the operating systems. Everybody thinks it's Android, right? And Samsung have almost half the Android market on their devices. But look at all these other players in the Android space that have their own unique variations of the Android operating system. Verizon, Sony, the list goes on and on. It's very fragmented. It's very challenging. And speaking of operating systems on these phones, think about all the different versions that are still out there. There's people that have old versions of iOS even, old versions of Android. Just curious, any iOS, Apple folks there? Anybody gone to 8? Great. Anybody still on 7? Yeah. But this is a challenge, right? Somebody's got to be thinking about that. And there's, believe it or not, previous versions of iOS, and obviously Android, that people are still stuck on. They like it, it works. I don't want to have to upgrade. See, when you're thinking of mobile apps, you gotta be, how do you take all of that in and build it, the right platform for all these different devices? And then the evolution, like I said. You've got new operating systems coming out, new devices, obviously, wearables, like Google Glass, for example, the watches, and don't even get me started on the Internet of Things. Cars, for example, amazing mobile platforms. They're getting more and more intelligent and complicated every year. How do you harness that mobile space? And we'll get into that a little bit more as we go through the presentation here. I tried to capture all of this really and get it into one chart, and it's a lot to read. Don't expect you to. These charts are going to be available online, but I do want to hit on a few of them. You know, some of the challenges to consider and reasons for considering the work that we're doing with our MobileFirst platform to take on these challenges for you so you can focus on what it is you actually want to do for your stakeholders. Starting up at the top here, I mean, these are context-aware devices. That's a huge opportunity, right? They know where you are, what you're up to, and think about all the different ways you can take advantage of that if you're a first responder or you're a social worker, parole officer. They run on unstable networks, right? You're driving down Interstate 5 and you hit a black, dead zone. You go through a tunnel, you're in the middle of a transaction, whether it's a banking transaction or something else. How does it stay with you? Can the app do that? Again, compared to working on your desktop, plugged in at home. Smaller footprint, obviously more challenging. Comprehension, retention is much more challenging on these smaller screens. How do you simplify the clicks? Don't just take a desktop experience and smush it down onto a little device screen. It's not going to work. Things to think about. Faster development cycles. Obviously with these new operating systems coming out, new devices, it's moving very quickly. Development approaches. Do you go with just a mobile web type of application for your consumers? Do you go for native, actually taking the time and building native apps for each device? Or do you do a hybrid, something in between where you take the pros of each approach and blend them together? The key is to have a platform in place that allows you to do whichever works best for you, whichever circumstance, or whichever stakeholder group. Testing, obviously, incredibly complex with all the different devices and operating systems and so on. Management is different too. Governance and distribution of the apps. App Store terms of service. This is interesting. I mean, you aren't actually able to, you aren't necessarily allowed to force people to upgrade their apps or even their iOSs. Well, I mean, their operating systems. The App Stores are very strict about some of this, and this really plays down into security. What if you know somebody has an app that there's some malware? How do you detect that when it's coming in, requesting information or a transaction, and stop it? You can't force them necessarily to upgrade it, but you don't want them to proceed. Again, all these considerations that need to think about with mobile or have a partner in place who's got a platform to do this. I'm a big animal picture kind of thinker, and in this case, big tree picture thinker. And again, if I want to leave you with one visual, it's just that mobile apps go way deeper than what we think of and what we see on the actual device, the front end, right? If you think about it from a percentage perspective, people think that that's where all the work is and all the value, and it is, but only 30%. 70% is what needs to happen under the covers. This is your integration, development, push notifications, geolocation, offline availability, setting up a private app store for your B2E folks, security. It's non-negotiable. User authentication, pushing out upgrades, the application security from what's on the device all the way through the network to the back end. And operations, managing and enforcing app upgrades, user experience issues. These are all things that, and there's, again, tremendous amount of complexity underneath all of these different tasks. The idea is, again, with the right platform in place, you can actually flip-flop this because you don't have to worry about what's happening under the covers, and you can focus 70% on the user experience and creating the value for your citizens, for your employees, stakeholders. So again, I really want you to think about how you can take this and make it work for you in your mobile journeys. Just a few slides here. Gartner, supports our work in the MobileFirst space. We're a leader for mobile application development platforms, application services governance. We're the only leader in managed mobility services. In fact, IBM is the only vendor that is a leader in 6 categories of the mobile stack. So again, tremendous support and validation for our MobileFirst work. Dig a bit more into some stats, specifically in government. Your space is here, and there's a few here that I really find interesting. And this came up in the keynote this morning. 1/3 of citizens, your citizens, are accessing government websites through a mobile channel. That's a lot. And look at this top one. 2013, mobile phones actually overtook PCs as the most common web access device worldwide. Now, so think about that. This is going to only accelerate. 95% of government leaders are looking to sustain or increase investment in mobile technologies, but then the one right below it, 37% of government leaders report having limited to no mobile strategy. So a lot more thought needs to go on there. This last one down below, 81% of federal workers feel mobile devices are critical to their jobs, and actually 82% feel that increases their productivity. How can you capitalize on that with a BYOD strategy? People are bringing their mobile devices, their mobile smartphones to work. How can you empower them to use those to be more efficient, more productive out in the field? Some of the major forces impacting government specifically: increasing demand from citizens and organizational stakeholders for access. And again, I think this came up in the keynote this morning. We use our devices for so many different things every day. And whether it's banking, insurance, retail, people expect that same quality mobile services availability from government as well. They're treating government like a business. They expect it to put in the same work effort and deliver the same capabilities, innovative new things in mobile, as businesses do. So you're being held to that standard. Obviously, data security and privacy, non-negotiable. From, as I said, from the app through the network to the back end, back has to be secure. Fragmented approaches. We find a lot of different folks are building in different silos, right? Somebody's using this technology, this development tool. The idea is really you need to consolidate on one platform that allows you to build once and deploy to many different devices, that has all of that underpinning, the roots of that tree built in. And then, the volume, public data, huge opportunity for mobile innovation. And that's where it gets really exciting. I'm going to share some of the things that some of our customers around the world are doing, just to give you some ideas. So just some 3 key focus areas to think about, providing your citizens, and I think everybody probably knows this, and organizational stakeholders with that access to the information and business services that they need. BYOD, number 2, increase employee productivity. Take advantage of everybody having smartphones. Figure out a way to take advantage of that rather than just closing your eyes to it. And do that with relevant policy, strategy, and governance framework. It's absolutely a must. Some of the things we like to do, I think about with our customers, can be a little overwhelming, so maybe think about it from 4 different entry points, if you will. 4 ways to get started. From, do you want to do something that engages your citizens? Engage with them. Services, for example. Build, do you want to create a platform, first and foremost, that allows you to manage, deploy, test everything for your mobile services, mobile devices, mobile apps. Protect, that BYOD. Do you want to think about how can I let our employees bring their smartphones to work and be more effective, but in a secure way? And last but not least, transform. Do you actually want to just change the way think born on mobile? And I'm going to give you some examples of that, specifically even in our IBM and Apple partnership space as we go through. So what I wanted to do is just take you on a quick little tour of some of our customer success stories that we've been working with governments, not only here in the US, there's a lot of them, from NYPD to State of Georgia Corrections, State of Illinois, mobile services, but also some outside the US. So you can see what other governments are doing, because it's a common problem, challenge, and opportunity around the world. So the first one is the city of Honolulu. So let me run this.
Aloha, good morning, Honolulu. We have clear skies and beautiful Hawaiian weather for you today, and you can start your day on the right foot. Aloha.
Our goal is to create Honolulu as the lean, clean, smart city of the future. We wanted to make sure that we gave people information so that we could get feedback as to whether we're doing things right or whether they're doing them wrong. Transparency leads to self-correcting behaviors. This is a time in the economy, I think everybody recognizes, that we have to do more with less.
As a city, we shouldn't have to spend money to interact with our city. We already pay taxes, right? So ideally, if we can somehow provide internet for free and get the citizen to talk to the government or the city, that'd be great.
Hawaii is one of the largest adopters of mobile technologies in the country. So the citizen starts asking for more data, crime statistics, traffic, and so we started making them available in a usable format. And that enabled the citizens to create some really unique applications. They are on our internal cloud for them to run those applications.
The goal of the bus app is to give the bus riders, so they don't have to guess about when the next bus is gonna come. Our goal to eliminate that guesswork. The city actually provides us the open API, which allow us to retrieve the arrival information and the current bus locations. For me, is total satisfaction.
The inspiration for the Tsunami app is a result of the March 2011 earthquake in Japan and the subsequent tsunami warning for Hawaii. The application makes use of GIS web services. So the base map is the outline of Oahu. On top of that, we overlay what they call operational layers. That would be the pink or the red tsunami evacuation zones. I'm born and raised in Hawaii on the island of Oahu. And growing up here, I feel like there's a responsibility, I guess, to give back. And everyone has an opportunity to do it in their own capacity.
We deployed what we call Honolulu 301 mobile application that would allow you to report problems or situations back to the government. So we created some initial applications that would allow the citizen to use their mobile device, take a photograph of what was going on, abandoned vehicle, illegal dump site. It's geocoded, send it back to our customer services department, who then gets it, who then sends a thank you for sending it to us, and then we give them status on where we are on getting it resolved.
SMART is basically one, making sure that the technology is correct and doing those things, again, that will give people the most information and the biggest bang for their buck.
For me to be able to now, on a single platform, to be able to run multiple operating systems, to run multiple applications, to reduce my licensing costs, to reduce my time to deploy, all of those kinds of things are key to governments and the private sector to be able to get your services out to the customer.
I'm helping to build.
We are building a smarter Honolulu.
Pretty impressive story. Amazing, if you think about it, what they're enabling their citizens to do. So again, I thought rather than me tell the story, it's good to hear somebody else tell it, the actual government that is doing it. For my next example, this I actually want to do a little demo, actually on a device, on my iPhone. This was the United Arab Emirates, their Ministry of the Interior. Let me go ahead and set this up. As a lot of governments are facing, wanted to be able to provide services to their citizens. Now let's see if this comes up here. So they challenged IBM. They said, okay, let's give this a shot. Let's get this MobileFirst platform in place. And they created this site, this mobile app, basically. And it has lots of basic features, vehicle registration, traffic fines that you can pay. It's tied into social, obviously, civil defense, vehicles and tank approval, compliance certificates, police, lost documents, criminal status, prisoner certificates, residency. And I'm actually obviously not a resident, so I can't access some of these services, but I know you pull up this services catalog here. So here, for example, you can see the full list of services that they have, just particularly in traffic, civil defense, lots and lots of services. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is that they basically started, and in 2.5 months, they'd made 14 services. They built 14 services, and they took another 2 months and added an additional 17 services. So the point being time. With the right platform in place, you're able to build a really robust set of capabilities for your citizens. The next example I want to use, so again, speed, critical. Let's wait for this one to come back up here. Another one from overseas here. China Ministry of Rail. This is all about scalability. So the previous one was about speed. This is about scalability. We worked with the Chinese Ministry of Railways. Basically, they had a challenge. They have approximately 4 million people a day riding their trains during the Chinese New Year period, right? And yet, historically, very challenging for them to physically buy tickets. So mobile was critical for them. But scalability was even more critical. So they worked with our software group, hosted on 24 WebSphere application servers. And look at their benefits down here. On the first day alone, 500,000 people downloaded the application and performed 300,000 ticket inquiries. Over the Chinese New Year, sort of the 2-month festival period, 18 million app downloads within those 2 months. Peak times, peak days, 400,000 tickets were being sold a day. And in some cases, they were getting 100 million daily hits on their servers. That's guys like me looking for the upgrade, I think, checking to see. Just kidding. So switching gears a little bit here, I wanted to talk about the Apple and IBM partnership that we just announced recently, because this is very exciting for us. Has everybody heard about it by any chance? Anybody? Yeah, okay. So the idea behind it is bringing together the best of both of our companies to transform the mobile enterprise. This is really about how we can help businesses, government, enable their employees. This is not a business to consumer or a business to citizen type of relationship. This is really about transforming mobile enterprise. So again, the idea behind it is to take the core capabilities and strengths of each of our two companies, IBM's core expertise. As I mentioned, think about the roots, our integration work, big data, infrastructure, our consulting engagements. We have a huge breadth of experience working with folks like yourself and folks all around the world that we can bring to bear. Take that, the analytics, our work in analytics. Take Apple's beautiful, if I may say so, beautiful devices, they really are. Beautiful devices from the iPhones, the iPads, the minis, and the iOS operating system, one of the most advanced operating systems. When we talk smartphones, these are some of the capabilities of an iPhone. I mean, it is such a powerful device, right? So again, take all of this, bring it together, and this is what we're coming out with. 4 different offers, if you will. First is the IBM MobileFirst iOS solutions. These are starting out with 100 to 150 special magic apps, is the term that we use with Apple. They're very much about magic apps and magic devices and delightful experiences, and they deliver on that. So the idea is create 100 and 150 apps, and I'm going to drill into specifically the government ones that we're working on for a targeted set of industries, about a dozen at first, with a few apps in each, delivered over the next few months, and then we'll continue to build these out. So that's the apps piece of it. We also have the platform, which I've spoken about. Again, if you think about the roots of the tree, the platform for, let's say you have your own apps, obviously, that you want to build that aren't in the apps that we're pre-building, right? That's the platform in place. And I should mention these are optimized, obviously, for iOS devices that you want to provide to your employees out in the job. Supply, activate, and manage. This is a part of working with Apple to create really great offers where you say, I want to take 500 iPads, I want to have them loaded up for my particular employee's skills with the right access, the right security. I want to literally be able to hand it to them and have them go off with it. Set up with leasing or purchase. And then last but not least, Apple Care. Does anybody here have Apple Care for their own personal devices? Yeah? I don't know about you, but I've had exceptional experiences anytime I've had an issue, whether it's over the phone, web, or the Genius bars at the stores. Brilliant. They have the gold standard with Apple Care in terms of customer service. This is enterprise-grade customer service. So if you have any issues, you've got the full backing of IBM and Apple together for your employees' devices. It's really 4 different options. And I want to just drill into the apps one a little bit here, because I think that one might be of interest here. As I said, we're picking sort of a handful of industries at first and just doing 2, 3 apps initially, pre-building these apps. Let's say they're, 90% of the way ready to go, just need some customization work done on them. The 2 in particular that we're working with Apple on specifically for government for the next month or so are the mobile social caseworker and the mobile first responder, and then next year we'll start to come out with more. And as I said, the idea is to really think about how we can make a difference with these apps. What's the pain point here in each of these cases? And I'm going to pick on the mobile social caseworker as an example. And then how can we make it better together? So again, looking at the mobile social caseworker example, there's over 600,000 of them in social caseworkers in the US. They spend up to half of their time just on travel and administration. They're out in the field, limited access. Oftentimes they've got paperwork. They're isolated from other social caseworkers and missing out on the opportunity to take advantage of the expertise shared across the field. And that leads to incredibly high annual turnovers of 20 to 40%. Serious industry pain point here. And that's one of the reasons why we're looking at an iOS app with this partnership to address this. And we have a litmus test, is what we call it. You know, what's that industry pain point? Obviously, we've got a major one there. How are we going to be able to fix that using analytics, powered by analytics, right? Routing of the social worker based on workload and their location. Real-time risk profiling. We have a tremendous amount of information we can leverage here. Even rule-based recommendations engines that we can bring to bear on their device wherever they are. Designed first for mobility, not taking something that's already on a desktop or in their paperwork and just putting it on mobile. This is really designed to take advantage of the fact it is mobile, the GPS, the microphone for interviews, the camera, translation, text, language translation, text conversion. And then last but not least, it's got to empower the employee. We want to make them not just run-of-the-mill apps, but really give the employee power to take advantage of the broad experience out there in their social community, social casework community, eliminate the need to return to the office, stop it with the paperwork, or having to go back to a terminal in the office. It's on. Give them the power in their hands. So that's the idea behind this. This is just a quick example. As I said, it's something that's going to be coming out in the next month or so, these apps, and then expect a bunch more over the next first half of next year. And we're going to continue to do it, working with governments to find out what are the biggest pain points and how can we build apps to really help them address those pain points. So the last one I wanted to leave you with here, and this is again, just thinking, we touched on this earlier, the Internet of Things. Mobile is so much more than just these devices, and it's going to become more and more so, as I said, with cars, for example, even the roads, RFID tags. This particular client, the city of Eindhoven, over in Europe, had a really interesting story. I wanted to share this one with you. Again, I'm going to let Ab do the talking here.
Meemaken op de weg. Het spoor wordt steeds drukker wordt en het duurt gewoon steeds langer om op kantoor te komen.
Hier staan we bij de A2. Dat is een belangrijke ader tussen de Rotterdamse en Antwerpse haven en het Duitse achterland. En we zien de intensiteit van het vrachtvervoer ontzettend toenemen. En met name in de spitstijden zie je dat woon-werkverkeer en vrachtverkeer mengt zich. Dat levert veel onveilige situaties op en daar zoeken wij een oplossing voor.
Als mijn navigatiesysteem beter, sneller en preciezer informatie ontvangen, zou ik mijn route daarop aan kunnen passen om sneller en efficiënter en veiliger de mensen op de plaats van bestemming te brengen.
Samenwerking is juist in dit soort innovaties heel belangrijk. We doen dat hier met de overheid, de universiteit en het bedrijfsleven.
Elke auto, moderne auto's zijn voorzien van honderden chips. En die chips die weten van alles over de toestand van die auto. Door een klein kastje in die auto in te bouwen, voorzien met een chip. Die weet waar de auto is via GPS-positionering. Die kan die data uit die auto uitlezen en die verstuurt dat versleuteld op een geheime manier van privacy te waarborgen naar het internet. En daar kan al die data gebruikt worden om informatie af te leiden over de toestand van de wegdek, maar ook over veiligheidsaspecten.
Het is mooi dat wij als bedrijf Silotax alleen met ons werk doen, gegevens kunnen verzamelen die gebruikt kunnen worden om het veilig te maken op de weg.
Wat IBM laat zien is dat wij de verschillende databronnen aan elkaar koppelen en daar een slimme informatiestroom van maken. En die slimme data zorgt ervoor dat je automobilisten op de juiste manier kan informeren over de veiligheid op de weg en de wegbeheerder kan helpen de veiligheid op de weg te verbeteren.
Als meerdere auto's op één plek remmen in combinatie met alarmlichten, dan is dat staat van de file. Als het regent, door de ruitenwissers die staan aan, je weet dat het min 2 graden Celsius is en je weet waar die auto rijdt, dan kun je die informatie combineren met internet en dan weet je gegarandeerd dat het glad is vanwege ijzer of sneeuw op die locatie.
Het fijne is dat ik nou van tevoren kan zien wat de staat van een auto is en de situatie op de weg kan controleren, waardoor ik opstoppingen kan vermijden.
Nou, als sensoren in de auto nu aangeven dat er na de winter beschadigingen in het wegdek zijn, dan is dat voor de wegbeheerder erg interessant.
Wij geloven dat ICT een belangrijke oplossing kan zijn voor de verkeersproblemen die wij kennen in deze regio. En dat wanneer mensen kunnen reageren op de actuele verkeerssituatie op de weg, dat het een belangrijke bijdrage levert aan een goede doorstroom van het verkeer en de verkeersveiligheid.
Ik kan veilig rijden en ik heb gewoon een prettig gevoel.
De impact van deze oplossing is enorm. Als we echt uit alle auto's de informatie kunnen halen en Deze kunnen combineren tot waardevolle informatie, zodat de verkeersveiligheid wordt verbeterd, de doorstroming veel beter loopt, dan hebben we daar allemaal wat aan. Dan worden steden prettiger om in te leven en worden regio's efficiënter en kan de economie blijven doorgroeien.
I love that example because, again, it's way more than just devices. Think about all the things that were being brought up there, this Internet of Things, right? Potholes, sensors in the roads, knowing when your wipers are going on. This is way more than just, which I love, Google Maps, where it tells you there's a traffic jam. This is, taking it to the next level, brake lights coming on, conditions that your car can give up that information. You can do a lot with it. So, just kind of to close before we open for some Q&A time, ibm.com/MobileFirst. Of course, I'm happy to help here too. I'll be here for questions as well all day. Join the conversation. We're on Twitter, Facebook. And if you're interested, let's schedule a mobile discovery workshop and really get into this in some more detail. IBM Mobile at us.ibm.com. And then the last thing I would leave you with is, these mobile journeys that we're all going on are incredibly fast, and you got to be careful. Let's work together so that doesn't happen. All right? Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Again, I'd love to open up for questions. Anybody got some questions that were brought up by the different charts?
Who was that website again? It says IBM/mobile, just mobile? Or?
IBM.com/MobileFirst. So thinking about building mobile first. Well, as I said, Cliff and I will be out at the table right out there and to the right. We would love to discuss your mobile journeys in greater detail, answer any questions. So again, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.